Please welcome National Kidney Foundation Executive Director, Amy Hewitt.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Amy Hewitt, Executive Director for the National Kidney Foundation, serving Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Well, I know we would all love to be enjoying this event together in person. I'm grateful to have you all here. Without your generosity, this event would not be possible. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge those people and organizations who've supported us on this virtual journey. For this year's featured authors, first, lending their gifts of their time and talent, of course, Walter Mosley, who's here with us tonight, Mary Roach, Elizabeth Strout, Amor Tolles, and our special guest, Gail Sukiyama, and of course, Michael Krasny for his decades of dedication to the Authors Luncheon, and our host, Liam Makelum, who we will see tomorrow. I also want to thank our sponsors. Thank you to our gold presenting sponsor, Wilson Dow, our Authors Circle sponsor and Circle Plus sponsors, Satellite Healthcare and Otsuka America Pharmaceutical Inc., our silver sponsors, Rick and Candy Barnett, Union Bank, V4 Pharma, our Nobel sponsors, Ann Barr and Fred Madison, Kaiser Permanente, Stanford Medicine. I wish I could thank all of you, but I will, for the sake of time. I also want to thank our literary partner, Elaine Petrocelli and Book Passage, and her extraordinary team who go above and beyond. Our exclusive vintner partner, J. Lord Vineyards and Wines, and the entire Lore family. And to all our dedicated supporters, you have our heartfelt gratitude for your partnership and generosity. We also wouldn't be here today without our local board led by Rick Barnett and our amazing NKF staff. Finally, I want to share my gratitude for this kidney community. You are a constant source of inspiration and can continually remind us of the importance of our work and events like the Authors Luncheon. Now, please welcome Sheila Gordon, our amazing Planning Committee Chair. Thank you, Sheila, for your steadfast commitment, which knows no limits.
Thank you, Amy. You know I think you and the NKF staff are the very best. I'm so excited to welcome all of you tonight for a very special evening. We have two national treasures with us in conversation, Walter Mosley and Michael Krasny. Walter is the author of more than 60 books. Walter, you can correct me if I'm wrong about that number later. Walter's a master of many genres, but he is most well known and beloved for his fictional crime stories. He has won way too many awards to mention, but most notably, he was recently given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the National Book Foundation. Michael Krasny is known as one of the greatest interviewers of all time. Amy Tan once told me that Michael's the only interviewer who always reads the books. Michael is a best-selling author and a literary critic and professor of English at San Francisco State University, as well as the longtime host of the award-winning NPR show Forum. But Michael's very favorite titles are husband, father, and grandfather. So now I will turn our program over to my good friend, Michael Krasny. Thank you all for joining us and have a fabulous evening.
And thank you, Sheila, for that warm welcome. I'm now Professor Emeritus and retired from being the host of Forum on KQED, but I'm delighted to be back here again with the Kidney Foundation. And want to thank especially Sheila for all the work that she has done. It's my pleasure to once again take part in this year's event as Master of Ceremonies, and I've had that pleasure and honor to help the Kidney Foundation raise awareness and funds for the past 26 years. I'm also grateful that we've adapted this time-honored tradition to meet our current situation. It's also wonderful, frankly, that we have been able to extend our audience to have folks attending from all over the country and beyond. And there are a lot of patients who are grateful that you're here this evening. On behalf of the National Kidney Foundation and the kidney patient community, we thank you for your support. And as Sheila mentioned, we once again feature an extraordinary and talented group of authors. I look forward to talking with the great writer, Walter Mosley, a little bit later. And before we get to that, tonight you're going to hear from NFK Northern California Board Chair Rick Barnett about how your support is actually helping the NFK transform lives. You'll also be inspired by patient Valen Keefer, and of course, Elaine Petrocelli will tell us about this year's authors. First up, I'd like to welcome and thank our friends at Lohr Vineyards and Wines who have generously donated the wines I hope you are enjoying tonight. And tonight we have Cynthia Lohr, co-owner and chief brand officer, here with us. In honor of their nearly 15 years of partnership, I've asked her to tell us more about the wines and lead us in a toast. And welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you for the warm introduction, Michael, and thank you to all the sponsors and friends in attendance at tonight's VIP event. Your support is vital to the continued success of National Kidney Foundation and the Authors Luncheon. And on behalf of my brothers, Steve and Lawrence Lohr, and our father, founder Jerry Lohr, we couldn't be more honored to usher in our 14th year in partnership with National Kidney Foundation Authors Luncheon. This event remains among our favorite annual events as we walk away inspired by the gifted writers selected for the luncheon, the power of the written word, and filled with hope, listening to the courageous stories of kidney donors and kidney recipients and their remarkable life-affirming journeys. We wanted to mark tonight's event by sharing two very special wines in our portfolio with you. The 2020 J. Lohr October Night Chardonnay hails from our sustainably farmed estate vineyards in Monterey County's Arroyo Seco, also our origins. These vines are grown on cobblestone-laden soils that capture heat during the day and radiate heat after sunset that contribute to and enhance the richness and floral aromas that emerge from the very distinctive Dijon Clone 809, also known in some circles as the Muscat clone. Now, if you're a Cabernet lover, you're certainly going to adore our 2017 J. Lohr Shotwell Vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon grown in a cooler region of Paso Robles, also sustainably farmed, where the undulating hills and chalky soils give way to these beautiful black currant, tobacco, anise aromas, followed with a long finish of red fruit and balanced with soft, silky tannins. I want to give special thanks to Michael Krasny, to Authors Luncheon Event Chair Sheila Gordon, to Executive Leadership Chair Jessica Beer, the always entertaining MC Liam Maklem, Book Passage founder and president Elaine Petruccelli, and of course, National Kidney Foundation Executive Director Amy Hewitt. And to our esteemed authors, as we look to write for the future, your words mean more to us than you will ever know. So join me as I raise a glass to toast the 33rd Annual National Kidney Foundation Authors Luncheon. And now back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you to J. Lohr. And next, I want to introduce you to Rick Barnett. He's board chair for the National Kidney Foundation, serving, by the way, Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. And Rick's going to say a few words. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here. And I've been attending this event now for over 7 years. And while the last two have certainly been different from the rest, the heart of this event is still the same: to transform kidney disease care and improve the lives of millions of Americans. I have a real passion for kidney patients. Today, I'd like to share a few highlights about how NKF is capitalizing on your generosity to help improve outcomes for the kidney community. Just this year alone, there's been tremendous progress. I want to share some of these accomplishments with you. First, the NKF launched the Patient Network, a national registry which supports research initiatives aimed at improving patient-centered care. With its upcoming launch in Canada, this network will expand globally, which will build an even greater database to fast-track better treatments and accelerate potential cures. Very awesome. NKF is also leading an effort to ensure that 3 new classes of breakthrough drugs, which help slow the progression of kidney disease, are made available to patients and other high-risk groups. Now, over the summer, NKF and the American Society of Nephrology formed a task force and announced a recommendation from removing the race variable towards an equitable system of care for all affected by chronic kidney disease. This is a significant step forward in the effort to develop a race-free approach to diagnosing kidney disease. And just last month, NKF introduced legislation that will help more people with kidney disease make use of home dialysis and dramatically improve their quality of life. These efforts are in addition to the programs that our small but mighty team has deployed this year at the regional level in Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, Amy and her team. These programs include educating hundreds of medical professionals through the 53rd Annual Medical Symposium and the virtual journal clubs that were formed. With the advent of the virtual platforms, these programs now reach a global audience. How cool is that? Also, they've put together a number of patient-centric programs that have helped to educate patients on how to navigate their care and thrive through the pandemic as well, and also how to empower those on the transplant wait list to find a living donor. These are just a handful of examples of how the National Kidney Foundation and your kindness are helping patients live a longer, fuller life. Thank you so much for your generosity and your commitment to this event and to the National Kidney Foundation. Together, we are changing lives, and we're going to change more lives as we move into the future. Thank you for your participation tonight. Back to you, Michael Krasny.
And thank you, Rick. And thank you especially for reminding us why events like this one, the Authors Luncheon, are so important. On this note, I'd like to welcome Liam McClem. Liam has been involved with the Authors event for 10 plus years. That is over 10 years. And what can I say about Liam? He is certainly well known to many of us throughout the Bay Area. If you don't know him, he's an Emmy award-winning radio and TV personality. And here in the Bay Area, he's known as the Foodie Chap. He's going to introduce us to tonight's patient speaker. But before that, please enjoy a short video.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, if it's glass, yeah, you're gonna shatter it. Battle your battles, you gotta tell it how to the cure. You can breathe underwater. Won't you teach me how to do it? Yeah, I wanna take a swim and bring me with you one time. We can fly if you take me under your wing. But let me do my thing. And then it went like, hey, hey, hey. 5, 6, 7, 8. If it's trash, yeah, you're gonna take it out. Handle it rapidly, got the magic, you got it for sure. You can see what's in future. Won't you put me in the picture? Yeah, I'm gonna make it nice. Yeah, I'll bring the good vibes. Gotta win if you let me into the race. But I'ma do it my way. And then it went like, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it went like, and then it went like.
Well, hello, everyone. I am clearly not Liam. He, unfortunately, we were having trouble and, give it to virtual to have some challenges, is not able to be on with us. So I am stepping in his place. But wasn't that fun? I love that video so much. I was sitting here in my seat dancing away. And yes, the Authors Luncheon is really about writing a better future for futures for kidney patients. Tonight, I have the distinct honor of introducing you to Valen Keefer. She will be featured tomorrow at the luncheon, and you'll get to hear more about her story then. But wanted to give you the opportunity to meet her this evening. She is an extraordinary young woman who I have a great deal of admiration for. She was diagnosed at a young age with polycystic kidney disease. Her extraordinary path has led her to advocate for organ donation and helping other patients on their journey. And please welcome Valen. It's such a treat to have you here with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy, for that wonderful introduction. It means a lot. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to share this evening with you. I would like to dig a little deeper and provide my perspective on what the sentiments shared at the end of that video mean to a kidney patient. Hope, time, possibilities, and the chance to write our future. The meaning of these sentiments have evolved over my lifetime with living with kidney disease. I was diagnosed with PKD at the age of 10, and at that time, there wasn't a lot of hope for me to grasp onto. PKD has deeply impacted multiple generations of my family, even though we didn't talk about it that much, and I didn't have a role model to look to for hope, and really, I didn't have a community of support and felt quite alone and different growing up. As a teenager and living in the trenches of kidney disease, time, possibilities, and the chance to write my future just didn't have much meaning. I was in and out of the hospital throughout childhood with complications from the disease. This disease has no cure. Polycystic kidney disease didn't have a treatment back then. My future was knowing that dialysis and transplantation was on the horizon. I was too sick to dream and really think about my future. At the start of college, I became severely ill and spent about a year in the hospital. Both kidneys were removed. I was on dialysis. I was too sick to be put on the transplant waiting list, and I needed a living donor to step forward and save my life. At this point, there was little hope. Time felt limited, possibilities almost non-existent, and I felt like I had very little control over my future. That was until my phone rang and Sally, a close family friend that I've known since 8th grade, told me that she got tested and she was a match and she was going to donate her kidney to me. It gives me goosebumps to even say it today. At that moment, I felt hope for the first time. Sally's decision to donate her kidney has doubled my life. I'm grateful to say that this year I celebrated 19 years since that kidney transplant. Transplantation is so transformative. These extra years, this additional time, has totally reshaped those 4 words of hope, time, possibility, and future. I've learned that the power of hope is just endless. Through my patient advocacy and sharing my story, I've seen the weight that has been lifted off of someone's shoulders when I share my story and they know that they're not alone. Through my efforts, I'm striving to be that role model that I wish I had. And support and communities, events like this, organizations like NKF, they're giving patients like myself hope for a brighter future. This extra time has afforded me endless possibilities and a brighter future than I could have ever dreamed of in my youth. There's an amazing ripple effect to transplantation. It gave my parents their daughter back. It afforded me the opportunity to meet my husband and fall in love and get married and travel and do all the things I didn't even know if would be possible. It gave me the time to learn of my passion to be a patient advocate. It afforded me the opportunity to find my voice. 14 years after my kidney transplant, I became severely ill again, and I needed a life-saving liver transplant. Because of my kidney disease, it led to complications with my liver, and fortunately, 3 years ago, I received a liver transplant from a deceased donor. I believe this showcases that transplant isn't a cure. It didn't get rid of my kidney disease. The kidney transplant journey, kidney patient journey, is lifelong, one that needs continued support and advancements in medicine. Since the 1970s, when my grandmother passed away on dialysis, to 19 years ago when I got my transplant to this very day, there is so much progress to be celebrated and so much more to achieve. I'm alive today because of the advancements in modern medicine and science. And although there wasn't a treatment for PKD back when I was younger, several years ago, the first treatment for PKD was released in the United States. And I just want to thank Otsuka Pharmaceutical for their dedication and commitment and helping our PKD community lead a healthier and brighter future. I think storytelling and writing is so powerful. It connects us, it makes us not feel alone, it inspires us. It's been so therapeutic for me. And I think this event exemplifies it because last year, one of the remote attendees was so inspired that they decided to become a living kidney donor. We just never know the impact of our stories and our words. And for me, I just am so honored to share this stage, be a part of this event with such extraordinary authors and storytellers that are passionate as well to inspire others. I hope my story sets an example that one can live a fulfilling, joyful, and productive life with kidney disease. I want to show how grateful transplant recipients are, the importance of saying yes to organ donation, and the importance of supporting our kidney community. Thank you, NKF, Authors Luncheon, all of you, and Otsuka for this opportunity to share my story and represent our incredible kidney community. And I'm so honored to be able to share more of my story tomorrow with you in the Mission Moment video that I'm so grateful to be able to share. Just a big heartfelt thank you to all of you for supporting all of us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, Valen. You are such an amazing source of inspiration. I adore you. You have a big fan in all of us here at NKF, so thank you. And we look forward to hearing more from you tomorrow, and also look forward to sharing the story that you touched on earlier about the patient who became a donor, or the friend of NKF who became a living kidney donor. It's really patients like Valen who are why we are here. Hope is at the heart of the authors event, creating tomorrows, helping patients to realize their dreams. We have the power to do this at events like this. So I encourage you to support. You can, by texting authors 21 to 76278, you can donate and participate in the auction. We've got fantastic packages, including a virtual cooking class with the amazing Elizabeth Faulkner, a Tahoe vacation or a wine tasting trip for 4. Lots to offer there. So please check it out. Authors 21, text it to 76278, and back to you, Michael.
And thank you again, not only to Valen, but also, of course, to Amy. I want to also thank Valen, especially for sharing why events like this Authors Luncheon hold such an important meaning for the kidney community. We're going to look forward to seeing her again tomorrow. And before we get to tonight's featured author, I want to welcome my friend Elaine Petrocelli. She's president of Book Passage. She and her team over at Book Passage deserve a special thank you for all they've done to make this event possible, and they played a central role through the years. Please welcome Elaine Petrocelli.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here and to be part of the luncheon once again. I am so honored to be able to be part of it and to have been part of the authors selection and begging the authors to come. And this group of authors is, I think, one of the best ever. I just want to tell you a little bit about their books. The first one I want to talk about is Fuzz by Mary Roach. Mary Roach, as you know, writes what I would call weird science. I was once listening to Science Friday on NPR, and I had to pull over because I was laughing so hard when she was talking about grunt, what happens inside our tummies. Here we have Fuzz, when nature breaks the law, when a moose jaywalks. And what do you do with that if it's stopping traffic in the middle of town? Or if you're at Tahoe and a bear invades your kitchen, or if you're in the Himalayas and there is a leopard that is coming after you, or if there's mold in your house. She has a fun, wonderful book, and I can't wait to hear her tomorrow. Now, many of us have loved Immortals books, and we've read The Gentleman in Moscow and loved it, The Rules of Civility. His newest book is called The Lincoln Highway, and it starts out in the Midwest. And a young man, Emmett, has just been released from the work farm. Just as a little vignette, this book starts on the day that the gentleman in Moscow is let out of the hotel back in the mid-20th century. Here we are. We think that this young man and his brother are going to go to California to find their mother, but the journey they take is much different, and it's a mesmerizing book. And you definitely won't want to miss Oh, William by Elizabeth Strout, the author of Olive Kittredge, which won the Pulitzer Prize, the story of Lucy Barton, who was the protagonist in another Elizabeth Strout book. But this time, Lucy is writing to us about living in New York on the Upper West Side when her husband, no, her ex-husband, her most recent husband has died. Her ex calls her and says he needs her. And so together, they go on a trip to uncover a secret that has affected his life. Fascinating book. And we are so thrilled that Walter Mosley has agreed to be here tonight and be part of the luncheon, and especially this super interview that he will have with Michael Krasny. As you know, Michael Krasny is, in my opinion, the best interviewer. He does read the books, it's true. But more than that, his empathy and his knowledge there's nobody else like this. Walter Mosley's latest book, The Awkward Black Man, is an absolute treasure. There are 17 short stories in it, each one about a different man. At first you think, I don't know if I like this guy. And by the time the story is over, he has moved into your head and you have now 17 new friends. Don't miss this or any of the other Walter Mosley books, including the fabulous Easy Rollins series. And now I'm going to turn this back to Michael because I can't wait to hear what Michael and Walter tell us tonight.
Thank you, Elaine, for those kind words. It's a real pleasure for me to be in conversation with Walter Mosley. I talked with him a few times in my role as forum host. In fact, I talked to him the first time, my first year on the air as the host of Forum. The year before, the then president, William Jefferson Clinton, cited him as his favorite or one of his favorite novelists of all. And I think Walter perhaps knows that Bill Clinton is now a novelist, as Hillary Clinton is. But Walter has certainly become celebrated for many good reasons. Not only the novels that he's written, but many of you probably know his work from Easy Rollins and from the movies that have been made and TV works that he was involved in fact, as scriptwriter in many instances. But know his work perhaps to be not only as well crafted as it is, but to be really engaging storytelling that has tension in it, that has humanity, humor, that has certainly things that really upset and turn kind of your inner world upside down. His newest book is called The Awkward Black Man, and we're going to talk about that and talk about some of his other work in the time we have. The Awkward Black Man, as Elaine said, is 17 stories. It's been praised, as Walter's work has in general, but has received wide praise. The NAACP gave him an award for this book, and it's been cited as just about one of the best novels of the year by many of the leading newspapers, as well as by Kirkus Review, and just the list goes on and on. So I'm really privileged and honored to be talking to Walter. And Walter, I thought a good place to begin, and thank you so much for being here, is just to talk about how you do it. Elaine Petruccelli and Amy Hewitt were kind of marveling over not only some 60 books that you have in print, but you also, I should advise those who are listening this evening and are here with us on Zoom, may not know you did a book on the elements of fiction. You did a book on a young adult novel, as well as a book about an art memoir. There's just so much work, editorials, op-eds, when you look through what you put into print. So the simple question, I think, in many people's minds is, I mean, obviously you're a dedicated, passionate writer, but how do you do it? I'm sorry, I'm not hearing Walter. Is he with us?
Right. I was muted. You know, I didn't want to interrupt with anybody. I mean, I have an answer to that question. But you know, like most things that are creative, you know, you have an answer, and it might be the right answer, and it might not be. What I do is I write every morning. I write for 3 hours every morning. In the beginning, when I wrote for 3 hours every morning, I could in a year I could write a book. But in about 5 years into it, I could write 2 books, and then about maybe 12 years into it, I could write 3 books. I mean, it was just amazing, because the more you write, the deeper you go into yourself, the more you find. And I just love writing. And when people say, people often ask me, so, well, what's the best thing about being a writer? And they'll think like, you know, maybe, you know, meeting, you know, President Clinton, or making a movie, or working with, you know, famous people or whatever, you know, or making money. But really, the best thing for me about writing is writing. I just love it. And I think that, you know, whatever you're doing, if you really love it, you're going to be good at it, and you'll probably, you know, be very productive.
You're also a great storyteller, though, and a natural storyteller. And that's born out of this newest collection of yours. I want to talk about, if you could, where these stories come from, because, and maybe you could also address the title, The Awkward Black Men. There's a lot of Black men in this new collection of yours. Some of them more awkward than others, some of them middle class and bourgeois, some of them working class and poor. You've even got a professor who winds up in a lower Manhattan hospital with a bunch of homeless derelicts. You've also got a science fiction story in here, and a story about, which really could best be described as a ghost story. I mean, the versatility here suggests something much more than what's in the title.
Well, I'm happy about the title because, you know, often when you start talking about, you know, Black male characters specifically, they fall into certain things. You know, they're the best friend, they're the pimp, they're the, you know, the kind of like incredible, you know, physical specimen of a hero. You know, it's wonderful to write about these characters, but you know, there's just like everyday people who have everyday, you know, problems. Like this one guy was saying, you know, well, you know, the good thing is I lost weight for the first time. Bad thing was I had cancer, but you know, I mean, he had a very positive look to life. You don't usually find that character being a Black man, and I, you know, so that's one thing that I was really happy to do, to talk about those people who you don't usually see in fiction. But to talk to you about how you discover things. Again, I'm going to go back to the writing every day. You know, Freud, when he came up with the notion of psychoanalysis, said you're going to be in therapy every day. I mean, the perfect thing would be 7 days a week. You just every day you spend an hour in therapy. That's 1 hour. For the next 23 hours after all these things have come up, the back of your mind is going over things, is considering things, is putting things together. Things are rising to the surface. The next day, those things become part of your therapy. I'm not talking about psychoanalysis, though. I'm just talking about writing. What I find is if I write every single day, the next day, something new comes up in my writing. Something new impacts me. And I have no idea that even I'm going to write about it very often. And so I feel so confident in just the process of writing, as long as it's every day, that I'm just discovering things, coming up with things, and you know, and I just go with them. And it's because it's fun. It's fun to write. It's fun to, you know, write and to make stories and to tell stories that are unlikely or incredibly funny or really, you know, tragic.
No, you make it sound, when you bring up Freud, therapeutic or cathartic, and I suspect that may indeed be the case for you. But when you talk about characters who aren't normally associated with Black people or African Americans, I mean, for example, you've got a cowboy here. He wears a Stetson hat and a cowboy hat. He's from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
That wears a gun on his side and draws guns with speed, just like we associate with the Old West and those kind of cowboys. That's not necessarily your prototypical Black character by any means.
Well, you know, not in literature. But, you know, my father is from Texas, right? Well, he's originally from Louisiana, but he went to Texas when he was 8 and he lived there. And when I said, Dad, what was it like, you know, being in Texas? He said, well, you know, Walter, I'm a cowboy, you know, because he was from Texas. You know, he saw himself as a guy. And if you go to Texas, they have all kinds of cowboys of color down there. You know, it's a kind of an amazing thing, but it's not something that's, you know, that's well known because it's not the boxes that, you know, one we've been put into and others that we've decided to be inside of. So like when I was writing about that kid, I was writing about my father, you know? So yeah, I mean, you know, he was dead by the time I wrote that story, but if he had seen it, he would have loved it.
Well, you've written a lot of stories about Black life, kind of tranche de vie, slices of Black life. And it's particularly fascinating to me to see what you've done with all of these different, it's like reading a kaleidoscopic picture of all kinds of Black life from different classes. The stories of each of them is really quite successful. But you have this identity as a crime writer, and as you know, Easy Rawlins and Crime Stories interviewed you years ago when we were talking about Hammett and Raymond Chandler and so forth. Now, New Yorker's linking you to James Baldwin and Ralph Ellison. There's been a metamorphosis here, or not?
Well, you know, I like writing mysteries. I also like writing science fiction, erotica, a young adult, nonfiction. I mean, I like writing about politics. I mean, writing goes all kinds of places for me. What happened was I wrote my first book, Gone Fishing. It was about Easy and Mouse, my characters, you know, and my best known characters. But it wasn't a mystery. That was just an event, you know, gone fishing down in Texas, Louisiana, and nobody wanted to publish it. They, you know, I was told basically, I was saying, well, listen, these are two young Black male characters coming of age. You know, there are no real white characters in the novel. You know, and it's like this: white people don't read about Black people. Black women don't like Black men, and Black men don't read. Who's going to buy your book? Basically, that's what I was told, 1988, 89. So, listen, nobody gets their first book published anyway. So I started writing another book. Again, Easy and Mouse appeared. It was in Los Angeles. I was having a good time writing it. About halfway through, I realized that it was a mystery. I went, wow, this is like, he's like a detective. He's not a real detective, but he's like a detective. And I went to W.W. Norton. They loved it. They bought it. And you know, it went from there. So I always knew that I could, you know, make some money writing these mysteries. I love the characters that I write about. So I was happy to do it. But at the same time, I'm going to write The Awkward Black Man. I'm going to write R.L.'s Dream. I'm going to write The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. I'm going to write Blue Light. You know, I'm going to go all over the place because, you know, writing is, you know, it's what I do.
But do you decide beforehand, I'm going to go in this direction, or does it just come upon you? In other words, are we talking about inspiration or something that's more deliberate than that?
Well, you know, I think that it's all kinds of things. You know, it's as you're different, very in different moments. So if I have subject, like one time I had a subject, I want to, I'm not a religious guy. I don't, I don't have a religion. I'm not, I don't believe in a lot of the, that which is beyond the physical, but I do believe that I have a soul. I believe that. I feel it. I feel like I have a soul. I know it's unlikely, but I still believe it. And so I needed to write a novel about the soul. You can't write a mystery about the soul. Will you hire a detective to find the soul? It makes sense. So I wrote, this alternative reality fiction, Blue Light, science fiction, in which my main character, at some point, is going to try to discover what his soul is. And that was just, that was wonderful. At one point, I was having a talk with some guy. He was, we were talking about, pop culture and pornography. And I said to the guy while we were talking, I said, well, Debbie doesn't do it anymore. And I just said that, and I went, wow, that's a title. I can write that book. I thought it was going to be funny. It wasn't. But, these stories, ideas, they come from anywhere. It's like painting. It's you just I was watching a film on Picasso the other night. It just showed him drawing, He just did one drawing after another. And, I mean, he had some idea what he was doing, but at the same time, you could tell he was discovering it. I think that, as artists, that's what we do, right?
Well, when you talk about the soul, I'm thinking about the story in your new collection. And you were also talking about people rejecting the idea that you could write about Black life and get much of a readership. You got a character here who winds up in the afterlife angry about all these rejections he gets. Do you also maybe envision some kind of afterlife too?
Well, I don't. I don't. But writing about that character was so much fun because you write story after story after story. Nobody wants to publish it. Nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody cares about you. You hate them so much that you actually destroy yourself. You die, but you don't go away. You're because the hate lives on, and it was so much fun to write that story because the haunting, he was haunted by living beings. He wasn't haunting them. They were haunting him, and he couldn't get away to some kind of hopeful afterlife. That was fun.
In reading your work through the years, I would almost call you a kind of lay philosopher. We're talking now about afterlife and souls and maybe even been touching on theology, but by being a philosopher or giving you that silo, I mean, you've obviously, there's references in your work to Malraux and to Marquez. You're obviously influenced by some pretty serious and philosophical novelists. How much does philosophy play into your writing?
Well, I'm very, when I went to graduate school the first time, I studied political theory, and I was very interested in the thinkers of the mind. Anybody from Camus to Freud. Also wondering about Marx, who I do think thinks about things like that. I just love that, and I have my own philosopher. I've written 3 books about Socrates Fortlow, who is he's a philosopher educated in the black man's prison, which is black man's university, which is prison, and it's him trying to be a better man, because I think that in the central moment of philosophy, not necessarily modern philosophy, but the central moment is looking how to make yourself better, how to become one with the world that surrounds you, how to be a right person in the world. And, this is, this is really a part of noir fiction. Hammett, Chandler, these are people who actually say, well, what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil, and it's fun to play with those ideas, but also, playing is the way that we learn.
I like that phrasing. Playing is the way that we learn. So you're playing with ideas, but you're also playing with made-up stories that, for example, there's that French word that often comes into literary discussions, the dîner. You begin with the given. And one of the stories begins with the given that a guy has gone through a terrible hurricane storm and he boards himself off and he becomes celebrated. He becomes kind of a martyr to all kinds of political persuasions and all sorts of philosophies. I mean, this is during the Obama administration. That's the setting in New York, like so many of your stories. But I just couldn't help thinking, where did Walter come up with this? I mean, it just, again, it's playfulness, isn't it? And to a degree.
Well, you take your experience and you use it. You feel it when the big hurricane hit New York. It was a shock. It was traumatic. Everybody knew it was coming, but nobody was ready for it. And if you're a sensitive enough soul, or it hits you at just the right time, you just stop. Like this guy says, I'm not doing it anymore. It's like, what is that? That was that Melville story. What was the guy's name? When he would say, I'd rather not.
You're talking about Bartleby the Scrivener by Melville.
Bartleby the Scrivener, yeah. It's like you say, I'm stopping. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not living that life that you're telling me makes sense, because it doesn't make sense. and we all know that. I mean, we're living in a world, we're destroying the world and saying we're not destroying the world. We have all kinds of racism and sexism and ageism. We say we believe in freedom, but we don't believe in freedom, and it's this guy, I mean, you can't really deal with all the details. So this guy just says, I'm going to stop. And very much like Bartleby, though I wasn't thinking about that when I wrote it. I saw later that it was, I must have been influenced. Of course, to be influenced by Melville is like, it's like being blessed.
Well, I wish I were more influenced by Melville, but then I wish I had your talent. Here's a question from the audience. Somebody in the audience wants to know, is there one story that you haven't been able to find words to complete?
Oh my God, there must be 1,000 stories that I haven't really been able to write. There's so much that you want to say in life. I think that Western, though, for a long time, I wanted to write a Western and I couldn't. And finally I said, the reason I can't write a Western is because I'm not going to write about 150 years ago, somebody on a horse, rustling cattle. And I said, I'm just going to make it today. Modern and today, because there's cowboys today. If you go down to Houston, Texas, when they have the rodeo week, I mean, there's nothing but cowboys in Texas. And and so I thought, hey, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write that story. So I give it time. I have all the I still feel like, even though I know it's not true, I have all the time in the world, and I'm gonna write every story that interests me.
Well, you could have dedicated a story about Billy the cowboy, the black cowboy, to your dad, but your book, this new book, is dedicated to Toni Morrison, and you bring in Malcolm X. Can you talk about the dedication?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Toni and I, we were friends. I mean, we weren't like the best of friends or anything, but we were friends and we got along and we'd see each other and we'd joke around, and she would tell me these wonderful stories and jokes and stuff that were kind of irreverent. And I just, I just loved her, and I think that what Malcolm wanted to do was he wanted to bring the plight of Black people to an international level. He wanted to say, look what's happening with Black people in America, and I want the whole world to look at it. I want the United Nations to look at it. He tried, and he was successful to some degree. But Toni was completely successful at that. She took her writing and her words and her language, and she became an international figure. And looking at it, you think, wow, Toni did what Malcolm wanted to do. And I think Malcolm would have been very happy with her and what she was doing. And it made me happy to be able to say that, about her greatness, really.
Well, particularly, I was thinking about how The Bluest Eye in 1970, the kind of impact it had, but even after that, Sula and Beloved, tremendous impact on that kind of reading audience that those publishers used to tell you weren't out there, but indeed they, of course, were. Let me go to a few more questions that are coming in. Somebody wants to know how Black Lives Matter, the whole movement, has affected you or your work.
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine during the Black Lives, the big movement of Black Lives Matter after the murder, and we were talking, and the woman I was talking to was much younger, and she was saying, "This is terrible. This is the worst it's ever been." And I went, "No, this is on a line. This has been going on forever." And I was looking out into the streets. I was saying, this is so beautiful. When I saw these things going on in the mid '60s. There were only Black people rioting. Now I'm looking out now, and everybody's out there. They're saying this is right. You see, it's kind of a political evolution, and I think it was really beautiful. It's painful. It hurts. People get hurt, but at the same time, you fighting for freedom. I mean, Black people, whatever we call African Americans, and we have all kinds of names, but that political realization in America has influenced everybody. everybody, from of sexual equality, of gender equality, of age equality, that fighting for civil rights is what every American should be doing, and many learned it from that.
So any thoughts about critical race theory?
It's like, I mean, it's not a made up thing really, but it kind of feels like it. When people are saying, because Howard Zinn wrote a book, I forget the exact title, but it's History of America, right? And when you read that book, it's, what happened. Critical race theory is, well, this is what happened. It's not like this is a new way to kind of try to indict. I'm just trying to say what happened. If we came here and killed all the people who lived here before we got here, then that's what happened. If women didn't get the right to vote until the 20th century, barely 100 years ago, well, that's what happened. It's not a new way of thinking. It's just saying, well, what happened? And then answering that question.
Well, one of the new ways of thinking, here we're in San Francisco, for example, we've had this whole controversy about naming schools and maybe taking away the name of, Washington and Jefferson, for example, because they were slave owners. I think that's been part of this woke movement. And they have others in the line of fire, more controversial, like Lincoln, who did give the Emancipation Proclamation, of course, but they have reasons for feeling that he should have his name removed. How are you on that?
Oh no, I'm not so worried. That to me is not vital. I understand, if you want to say Nathan Bedford Forrest High School, I understand the problem with that. And I would say, no, I don't want the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan to be named for a high school where my kids are going to go. I get that, but I also get it if somebody is, the great great grandson of Robert E. Lee and is proud of that. I understand that. I believe that people can love and be excited by themselves. The thing is that what we need to do is we all need to, to share our love of ourselves and our history and have those things meet. I think that when you read Zinn's work, that's what you find, I'm much more worried about who's getting a good education, who's getting good medical care, who's getting fed, what we're doing to the atmosphere. These are the things that bother me, and these are the things that I concentrate on. The other things is say, well, what's this name? What's that name? It's just less interesting to me. I may agree with somebody, by the by, about that. I might say, well, what Thomas Jefferson did. Okay, fine, I know, but at the same time, I also know that there's, 100,000 Black people who were, his progeny in America, and this is all part of who we are. It's a kind of a great, kind of meeting.
Looking at a comment from one of our listeners, viewers, says, my only question is, can we keep this interview going for a few more hours? I'm a huge fan. I'm afraid I have to say that we've come to the end, but perhaps there's one quick question, again, from the audience. You have, somebody wants to know, you have many rich stories you have still to tell. What's next?
Right now, I'm writing a new mystery. There's I wrote a book, a mystery 2-3 years ago, Down the River Unto the Sea. I had a new detective, Joe King Oliver, an ex-policeman from New York. I'm writing a new novel about him. I had just finished working on Snowfall, the television show, and also this other thing, a little thing that I did called The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray, starring Sam Jackson. And so I've been doing a lot of TV work, and right now I'm just writing that novel and really liking it. Yeah.
Great pleasure talking with you, Walter. Continued success. Congratulations on the new book, also on all the awards that you have received, some of them really quite recent. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael. It's nice talking to you.
Great to talk to you. And this has been, I hope, an enlightening discussion for all of you. And it's been Also a special evening. I want to once again express our gratitude for all of the event sponsors and volunteers who made this 2021 event possible. Tonight was for you, and I hope you too enjoyed this unique opportunity. It was a tremendous honor for me. And this concludes the program, but you don't have to leave just yet. All you need to do is click the sessions tab on the left-hand side of the screen. And as Amy encouraged, please text authors 21 to 76278 to participate in the silent auction, purchase books, wine, and to make a donation. And the kidney community, I should end by saying, lost an incredible champion, Alan Mendelsohn, back in October. And before we close this evening, let's take a moment to honor his memory. His contributions to the life sciences industry, and particularly to our kidney community, are immeasurable, and his legacy will live on in the strides he made on behalf of patients everywhere. Thank you, and I'll bid you all a good night.